Welcome to the Entrepreneurial Blueprint Podcast. Real people, real stories. Chasing dreams, overcoming obstacles. Come get inspired and take action. I know you're ready. Let's go.
Welcome back to the Entrepreneurial Blueprint. Today is actually the 30th episode, so big milestone, and I couldn't imagine a better guest than my friend, a mentor, and just an overall great guy, Brian Kowitz. Brian, thank you for being here with us.
Absolutely. Congrats on your 30th show, by the way.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Awesome. So it's easy when we have a lot of great guests like you, and it's a good place to start, actually, that the guests that we like to have on, we like to focus on all facets of life. We like to focus on someone who's an entrepreneur or successful in their profession, someone that could be a sports athlete who's really successful, and obviously someone that's a successful father, someone, family figure, whether it's a mother, father, daughter, whatever, someone that really believes in family. And you kind of check all three of those boxes. It's really hard to be successful at more than one thing in life, really successful. And I think you've obviously done all three of those. And so that's why we're really excited to have you on to talk about all of those things.
Thank you. Well, that's why I'm so exhausted. I'm really tired. No. And that's why I lost all my hair, because trying to do all those things, very stressful. No, but it's been a great journey. Gosh, I feel very fortunate, to be kind of where I am now with my family and with my business, and then with the past baseball experience that I had, and to be able to now hopefully inspire and mentor and help younger people that are looking to do a myriad of things, whether it's pursue baseball, pursue business, just figure out what they want to do college wise, and then after college. So I feel like I want to give back to as many people as I can in the community, because I felt like I was so supported myself, just with my community. My family was so supportive. My friends were very supportive. And, I was lucky to have some really very influential mentors in my life as well.
Yeah, and I can give a testimonial on your behalf for that, because for the listeners, you and I went to the same high school. You went to Boys Latin. I went to Boys Latin. And obviously both baseball players, and you went on to play a lot higher level than I did. But even as we were cultivating our relationship, I was friends with your son. You would come to our games and whatnot, but you always took the time to sit there and talk to me, not even just about baseball. I mean, you love talking about baseball. We could sit and talk about baseball for hours, but just life in general. And it was you've always been supportive of me and guys like me who obviously have ambition. And I think you probably, when you see someone who has ambition like you, it excites you, and you want to share as much as that as possible. And I want to go back, actually, start from your high school career, and then to college and the pros, before we jump into your professional, your business career. But so Boys Latin, you were obviously, did you play more than one sport?
Yep. Played football, basketball, and baseball there.
Okay, so you were a 3-sport athlete. What was that like? And then when did you realize that baseball was your direction in life, and it wasn't, basketball or football?
Well, I knew really quickly it was not going to be basketball, because, I'm only 5'9". So even though I enjoyed basketball, and that was probably my favorite sport to play, especially in high school, because there's nothing like a Friday night basketball game against, a Gilman or a St. Paul's, or, a rivalry, McDonough. And, so basketball, I loved playing for Boys Latin, and we were able to beat Gilman in our championship game, conference championship series, which was a really big deal at the time, because we had no business winning it, and we somehow willed our way to win. And then football, I loved football. I played soccer really my whole life through 9th grade, and then my dad said, "How'd you like to play football?" Because the football coach really wants you to play for him. And I agreed to play in 10th grade. And I kind of was thrown right into the fire, because I just started playing, I was a backup quarterback my sophomore year. and played receiver and defensive back. And then my junior and senior year, I played quarterback, defensive back, and return kickoffs and punts. And I had a really good time doing that. It really helped me for my best sport, which was baseball, that I played my whole life. Just like I played basketball and soccer my whole life, I played, baseball and travel ball, and and I love playing. I just love to be out there and play. Nobody was forcing me to go out there. It was just it was just a lot of fun. So I was really lucky. I had very supportive parents, and they just took me everywhere I needed to be, and and they just watched and didn't say too much about things. I had a knack for, I just had a knack, I think, for the game, for all the sports really. I just just had an instinct that, and I don't know if you could teach it or not, but I just kind of gravitated to being a ball player, and love playing ball. And at Boys Latin, I went to played football, played basketball, and then went out and played baseball, and just it was very natural for me. I could track the ball very well. I had some speed, and I just my hand-eye was pretty good, so I just seemed to just take to it pretty well. And I love practicing the game. I love practicing all the sports. So I would be out practicing all the time in my backyard, in the driveway, by myself. I would just be playing all the time. A lot of pickup basketball, a lot of pickup, wiffle ball or baseball games, kind of, and football games in the backyards. Like, it's not quite as prevalent now as it was then. Just the neighborhood games were there was always a game, in the neighborhood. Yeah. So love that.
Yeah. Now, so you played through high school, and how did you get to Clemson? Was that you had an offer to play there? Did you have multiple offers? Was it a walk-on spot? When did you realize that you had a real opportunity to make a living out of baseball?
So I was playing for a team. I was playing for a Liberty Road travel team at the time, coached by a great guy named Bill Allen, Joe Clements, and Forrest Grogg, and Alvis Dickerson, he umpires a lot of these high school games. And I went out to play for their travel team when I was 16 years old. I was a junior in high school, and then we had a player on our team that was being watched by Clemson, and actually he was going to Clemson. He was a year older than me, so the Clemson scout was out there watching our game, and I had a pretty good game that day, and he asked me if I would consider wanting to come to Clemson, just based on that game. And I said, sure. I had no idea who Clemson was at the time. I didn't really know much about them, except a couple football games on TV, but they weren't kind of the Clemson we know of today yet, because just of the media was just not quite as widespread. And right. But then when I went down there to visit, they were a top 10, top 20 team in the nation. They were playing in the ACC, and I went down there to visit, and I really liked the school, and I committed. I remember I signed on the Boys Latin parking lot in the middle school, where the baseball field is, with Clemson right on the hood of my dad's car. But I had some offers. Like I had visited UVA, Hopkins wanted me to play a couple sports for them. Had some offers to play football as well. Wow. I had some James Madison, and then there was other schools down in Florida. Some of the Florida schools, had shown some interest, and Brown. There were some Ivy League schools as well, but Clemson just felt right. I just love their their balance. They're a very balanced school. Socially, academically, athletically, it was just a great balance for me. And I didn't know, even though I had a scholarship to go there, I wasn't sure. There's nothing promised. You basically I have an opportunity to try out to be a starter, and that's really it, and
Right.
be a significant part of the team. So that's kind of how that happened.
So I want to just bring up one thing that growing up, I had Jose Altuve, and I think there were some guys like Ozzy Albies and who started to break that stigma that you had to be 6'4", 240 pounds to play in the major leagues. You grew up playing in 80s, 90s, 5'9" Jewish guy from Pikesville or wherever you're from, Baltimore.
Yeah.
That probably wasn't easy. I mean, it's not like, besides, I don't know if Ricky Henderson was short or maybe it was Ozzie Smith that was short, but was there anything in your mind that said maybe this just, maybe I'm just not big enough, or were people telling you weren't big enough to play, or was that something that you just kind of blocked out?
Well, people would say things all the time, just people, a lot of people are just, naysayers, and, most people can be negative about baseball players and be right because baseball's so hard. So it's not really that, hard to be right when you say that somebody's not going to do well in a game of baseball because, it's so hard, and it ends for everybody usually before college and definitely before pro ball. I mean, it's a very small. So you're going to be right most of the time anyway. But for me, it, I think Matt would help me the most. And nobody told me this. I just did it. I did it because I loved where I was all the time. And I just wanted to dominate where I was. And really, you got to be great where your feet are, wherever you are, I knew early that if I wanted to do well and I wanted to get to the next level and I wanted to, get a chance, I had to dominate where I was. And if I dominated where I was, then obviously the next step is the next level.
Right.
And, and then the next thing was to make the decision easy for whoever was making that decision, so, if you do great, at 16 years old and the next level is 17U, then obviously if you do great at 16U, you're going to get a chance to play 17U. And then, if you, like going to Clemson, if you dominate in high school, you dominate in the summer ball before that, then, okay, the next step is obviously, college. And then, so I get a chance to go to college. I know that when I'm at Clemson, that, there's incredible players all over the country that have congregated there to compete for a starting spot. I had to compete with the player of the year in Maryland who decided to go to Clemson from Mount St. Joe. He was the player of the year. And I had to compete with him for an outfield spot and a senior for an outfield spot, and then a couple other incoming freshmen. And I what's the best way to win a spot is dominate, do well. And, and I did well. I mean, in a squad game we had, I hit a home run off of a senior. Our first fall baseball game, I remember, was against East Tennessee State. We played a 10-game fall schedule. My first at bat, I hit a grand slam. The next at bat, I executed a hit and run. So I just, I did what I had to do to at least get the shot, to earn, and I earned the starting spot in the outfield, and so that was step one. And then step two was, okay, the season starts. Now I got to keep my spot, and we opened up against Auburn. Frank Thomas is there playing. Greg Olson from the Orioles is on the other team, and my first game against Auburn, I was lucky enough, again, I got off to a good start. I hit 2 doubles against Auburn, my first collegiate real game. And then the next game was against University of Georgia, and I hit a walk-off home run in the 10th inning to win that against a big 6'7" lefty off the center field tarp. And that kind of solidified my, I tried to make sure it was a no-brainer for the coach. Just absolute. I didn't want to play any games with that coach, and just said, here, just. So I was able to get off to that good start and be able to earn that spot and stick with it.
But and I remember when I got to college, that pressure mounts quickly. You want to come in and you want to prove yourself, and it's not just like in high school. You have 25 guys on your team, but when you get to college, 50, 60 guys all trying to win a starting spot, 9 starting spots, and you take the pitcher out. You're not a pitcher, so that's 8 starting spots, and you're also a lefty. So that means you're not catching. So that's, that only gives you so many spots. And I again, when I got to college, I was a middle infielder, and I had to adapt a little bit to outfield, whatnot. But I remember that pressure mounting on me because I wanted it so bad. How did you deal with that pressure coming in as a freshman? And I think this is something that applies not just to sports, but in life in general, is that pressure. What did you do, or what can you, I guess, give the listeners how to deal with pressure, how to deal with that mounting pressure in anything they do that they want to be successful at?
That's a great question. I think I have an answer for it, and the answer for me at least, and I think it can help a lot of people, is I think the best way to alleviate pressure is to be over prepared and as prepared as you can be for whatever situation you're going to be in. So for me, that was making sure that I had more swings than anybody else, that I, practiced at a level and at a speed that was always game speed. Every drill I did, every swing I took had purpose, had meaning, and I was pretty mature in my preparation. So I was, I took advantage of the resources at Clemson through the weight training and the speed coaches and the agility coaches that we had, and the hitting coaches, and just all of the reps helped me be as prepared as I could be, so that when it was game time, Matt, the pressure was still there, but it was definitely alleviated a little bit through the fact that I knew in my mind I was prepared as I could possibly be, and that whatever happened. That helped me a lot.
It makes sense. Okay, and now that we've got through college, pro ball. So you got drafted by the Braves.
Yep.
What round was that in?
9th round.
So the 9th round. So you went to go play for the Braves. Take us through your career. I know you had a successful career in the minors, and then you had some hiccups. With MLB lockout, and you had some hiccups with some other things. Walk us through that a little bit. I think we'd love to hear that.
Yeah. Got drafted by the Braves. Signed pretty quickly after I got drafted. I went down to, the top 10 draft picks met in Atlanta for a workout, and they wanted to see us one more time. And that was the same year that Chipper Jones was drafted. So Chipper was down there, and a bunch of people. A guy named Johnny Walker, who was the 4th round pick. He was a wide receiver out of University of Texas, and also a baseball player, big, strong, fast kid, a lot of talent. And had a pretty good workout down there, and then went back to the hotel room with a scout who once trying to sign me, because I got drafted after my junior year. So there was a little bit of pressure on them to not waste a pick and make sure they signed me. So we had a little bit of leverage, and we're in the hotel room, and it's funny because they want to offer you as little as possible, and we want as much as possible. So it's funny because they were in so many words, telling you like how you're really not that good, so this is why we should.
Right, we're going to turn you into something here.
You're really not that good, but and we're saying, well, if I'm not that good, why'd you draft me in the top 10 rounds? And we negotiated a number, and I was happy. I just wanted to play ball. I would have signed for a pack of bubble gum, but we got a nice little signing bonus. It was fine. And then I remember reporting, like, in a couple of days, after the workout, I was told to report to short season A ball, which was in Pulaski, Virginia, which is not a very nice spot. I lived at a Comfort Inn, while I was there. And, but I got off to, a pretty good start. I was leading the league in hitting there. Again, Matt, it's try to dominate where you are so you can get out of there.
Right.
And so, for 2 months, I did pretty well. I hit like 325 there, and I think I had like 8 home runs in 2 months, and was leading in a lot of the categories offensively. And then 2 months later, I was told I was going up to AA. So I went right up to AA I was only 20 years old at the time when I went to AA. I mean, it's weird. I think a lot of college players are playing when they're like 23, 24 years old still. But I was 20. I was in AA at the time, and went up there, and it was challenging. I mean, it was pretty intimidating for me because it was like grown men, and I felt like I was still like a kid. And I did okay. The problem was I started 0 for like 21.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, like Rafael Devers did, with this season. and I was hitting the ball pretty good. I wasn't striking out. I was just, it was some bad luck, and then you start to press a little bit. It was the first time I really experienced failure. 0 for 21 was crazy. And then I started to get hot, and I was hitting the ball pretty well, and then the season ended. So, I went home, and then I went to fall ball for the Braves. Braves had fall ball in West Palm Beach, which I did, and then went to spring training and started in Durham in 1991, and I did pretty well there. Got caught up halfway through the season to AA again, and that was great. And then the next season, started in AA, then went back to Durham because it was an old AA team and they wanted me to play, so they sent me back to Durham. So I was playing in Durham with like Chipper Jones at the time. In '92, it was Chipper Jones at that time, and I was on his team. And then I got called back up to AA, and we ended up winning we won the AA championship that year in '92. So we won the Southern League championship. And I mean, it's serious baseball in AA. I mean, real serious. I mean, Durham was really good, and it was pretty serious. Like, there was Manny Ramirez was in that league, and Carl Everett, and they all came through there. Rivera and Jeter and all those guys came through. That league. Brad Osmus.
And this is single A still?
Single A, and then AA, it was like that. AA, you're when we won the championship against the Reds, the Chattanooga Reds in '92. It was we had a great team. You had Tony Tarasco on that team, and Melvin Nieves and Javi Lopez, and Brad Woodall pitched years in the big leagues, and Eddie Perez, and Ed Giovanola. We had Chipper, all these players, a lot of good players. And then in '93, I started in AA again. Played most of the whole year in AA except for the last month. I went up to AAA, and I had a pretty successful year that year. And then '94, I started. '94 is when I was in big league camp in '94, and
so you're getting close now. It's like you can start.
I can
tasting being in the big leagues, yeah.
And so '94, I had a really good spring training. I hit 364 in big league camp, and I had a walk-off home run against the Dodgers, and I had a walk-off hit against the White Sox, and so I thought I was going to maybe make the team, and then they told me I was going down back then to AAA because it was too crowded. And then so in AAA, I ended up that year hitting 300, and did real well, and we won the International League championship that year. We played the Toronto Blue Jays AAA team, and Carlos Delgado and was on that team. Sean Green, Shannon Stewart was on that '94 team, and we beat them. And I had a really good series. Hit a couple home runs, but there was the strike. So with the strike, and I was destined to get called up, at the end of '94, but the strike hit. So, and then the Braves didn't protect me, and I got Rule 5 by the Twins, but there was really not a big spring training. There was only a 3-week spring training, and I pulled a hamstring. So I only really was able to play for about a week with the Twins, and Tom Kelly said, we didn't see enough of you, so we tried to keep you in AAA so we could see you more, but the Braves wanted you back. So I then reported back to AAA with the Braves, and then Dave Justice got hurt in June, and I got called up to play right field and lead off with the Braves. That was really a great moment, for me,
right.
going into the clubhouse. We were in Paul. I'll never forget it. We were in Pawtucket, and I had a decent game. I think I hit a double and walked and drove in a couple runs, and then I was just getting something to eat in the clubhouse and getting ready to go shower, then get on the bus to go back to the hotel, and just kind of waiting around. And somebody said Grady wanted to see me. Grady Little was my manager in AAA. Grady wanted to see me, and I thought, oh my God, there's only two reasons why the manager wants to see you. One of them's good, one of them's bad. Yeah. So I went in there, and I'm thinking, oh my God, this is it. Am I getting released? Who knows? You just don't know. And he said, because he's a smart ass, he said, you're not going to be playing with us tomorrow. And I'm like, oh God, it's it. It's over. He goes, because you're going to be playing the Houston Astros tomorrow in Fulton County Stadium. I went, oh my God, I did it. I finally did it.
Right.
And it was an incredible moment. Just no cell phone. So I went to the payphone to call everybody in my family. I'd call Amy, let everybody know, and it was a great moment, and reported to I don't remember much after that. I just remember kind of that, and then nothing else. And then I remember kind of stepping into the big league clubhouse, in Atlanta the next day. And I just remember the first person I saw was Greg Maddux. It's like, oh my God, this is crazy. Like, right. I was like, I didn't know that I call you Sir, Mr. Maddux, Sir Maddux, So I saw him. He was really nice, and ended up putting me my locker next to Fred McGriff's, and it was a really interesting day because I didn't play that day. Sometimes they just want to get you settled in. So I was watching the game, and I had a great seat. Glavine was pitching, so I had a great seat. I'm sitting between Maddox and Smoltz, just like eating up everything they're saying, just listening to everything they possibly could say, just absorbing it all. And they were great. And I heard it was the fifth inning. It was the bottom of the fifth, and I heard Kowitz, get ready to hit. I'm like, and I'm like, oh no, I was real comfortable watching this game.
Right.
I said, oh God, it's really getting real here. I'm like, he said, go, get ready to hit. So I'm, oh my God. So he said, listen, if Lemke gets on, you're going to hit for Glavine, and if he gets out, then Glavine's going to go back out and pitch the top of the sixth. So I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, do I want Lemke to get a hit here or not? I was like, oh, this is getting real. Yeah. And so I'm standing on deck with Glavine because we're both on deck because he's going to hit if Lemke gets out, but I'm going to hit if Lemke gets on. So of course Lemke gets a hit, hits a single. Charlie O'Brien goes to third. It's first and third, one out, and Glavine's up there. I'm like, is it okay if I hit for you? Mr. Glavine, can I go hit for you, please? Is everything good here? And he just laughs. He goes, go get him. So, bang the donut off my bat, and I'm walking up to the plate. I'm going, oh my God, are you kidding me right now? Is this really happening? You got to be kidding me. And here I am. I'm just floating up there. I dig in, I'm left-handed, so I dig my left foot into the batter's box, kind of, digging in, and it's just shaking. My left leg is shaking uncontrollably. I'm like, oh my God. So I'm like, all right, if it's close, and I'm letting it rip. Shane Reynolds is on the mound. He's, like a Hall of Fame pitcher for, these Houston Astros Hall of Fame, Shane Reynolds pitching, So I'm like, if it's close, just let it rip, man. You just get this over with. Like, this is horrible.
This is you're getting out here, so at least just
let's just make this over with as quick as possible. And So he throws me like a 95-mile-an-hour like tailing fastball. I hit a ball, a nice shot down the left field line that goes down the left field line. Charlie scores. Lemke goes to third. They try to throw me out at second. I slide in safe to second for a double.
So your first major league at bat, you had a double.
First pitch I ever saw.
Oh my gosh, that's unbelievable.
First pitch I ever saw. So I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool. I could get used to this. So that was fun. So that was a big moment. And then I played for Dave just Dave was hurt, and then so I played for them. Then he got better, and I didn't play anymore really after that. I got sent back down, and then and I got hurt. I'll fast forward a little bit, but I ended up ultimately with the Blue Jays in AAA the next year, and I was doing pretty well, and I got hurt. I really hurt my ankle badly, and I had trouble recovering from that, and that's what caused me to retire. But and then I knew, like, when I got hurt, I'm like, oh, I got to figure something out fast. Like that's then when my business mind started, kind of running and going, oh God, like, all right, what am I going to do? And I learned the mortgage business really fast, but from a baseball standpoint, I had no regrets. I was really pleased with the way things went. I was happy I made it to the big leagues. I was happy I had, I did something that most people have never done before, and something that money can't buy. It's something you do that money can't buy. It doesn't matter how wealthy you are, you can't buy your way onto a big league team. And I was really proud of that.
Yeah.
I work really hard, and
it's interesting that you say that, because there's kind of two directions when you're talking about business, or maybe a few more, but the two big ones are you get out of college and you get a corporate job or a job somewhere, and you start working your way up. You have some fails, you have some successes, and you're kind of just slowly building your way up, and then you get that experience, and then eventually you get to where you want to be, and it takes years of experience. And then you have someone else who, maybe comes out of high school or college, and either, has a lot of success right out of college, or starts their own thing immediately and figures it out. But with you, I mean, you left college early. You got drafted, you played in the minor leagues, you played in the major leagues, and now it's like, then you get released, and it's like, okay, now I got to figure this out. People, my friends, my peers are ahead of where I should be if I were to get into business, but you learn those fails a lot. That failure happens a lot more frequently and a lot harder than what they probably experienced, but so does the success. So you have all of those emotions, kind of, you've conquered all of those emotions that you kind of need to conquer at some point in your life in business. So what was that transition like? You got into the mortgage business, and eventually that turned into being an entrepreneur. But what was that transition like, and having to adjust from getting to run around a field all day to now having to sit at a desk for 8 hours a day?
Well, a lot of people don't know this, but when I got hurt in '96, when I was with the Blue Jays, it was the end of the season, and then so I went home, and then I had 3 offers to go down in '97 for spring training, to go to spring training. I had offers from the Yankees, the Expos at the time, which is the Nationals now, and the Braves. And I didn't go. I didn't go because I didn't feel like I was healthy enough to compete. My ankle was still really, really bad. It just became really arthritic and hard to run the way, and I was a speed guy and a defensive guy too. So it was hard to do that. And my shoulder was like shredded. Like every time I threw the ball, it felt like I was getting shot, by a sniper in my shoulder. So, I made a tough decision not to play. And that's where I was like, I'm done. It's time to turn the page for me. My uncle, who was in the mortgage business, he trained me. Irvin Kowitz. He was in the business for a few years and had learned it and took to it really well, and he ended up training me in the mortgage business. You know, during that late, December of '96, early '97, when I knew I wasn't going to go back, and he was basically, took me under his wing. I butted my desk up against his, and he taught me really everything I needed to know about the mortgage business. And I started out, at the lowest level you could be. I mean, I was below a telemarketer, man. I was going to the courthouse, writing the names down for telemarketers to call, when telemarketing was more prevalent. And then I telemarketed a little bit, and then I became a loan officer and kind of worked my way in, over the years to where I, started to run a team, and then became a vice president of sales, and, just start, work my way, kind of like going from rookie ball,
Right.
Through the minor leagues to the big leagues. And ultimately in 2003, my uncle and I started our own business, where it was just he and I, and we had one other employee, and we grew that business from us to, was just three of us to 200 people, from 2003 all the way to 2011. We grew that business and ended up selling in 2011 to a bank in Maine. And so that was an interesting journey. I learned a lot during that journey, and learned a lot about business and learned a lot about myself. And after that, I got right into the insurance business, got my license, and just got right. One of the reasons why I got into the insurance business is because I wanted to, I really value my relationships, and I wanted to be able to, have, my network is so strong that I wanted to be able to go to my network and help with my business and have clients as opposed to transactions.
Right, because it's easier to get someone to get insurance than if they're not buying a house, then you're not selling them a mortgage. Fun facts, by the way, I was just mutual friend of our close friend of our Mickey Cohen. We were just actually talking about, he used to work for you, and he said, "Man, I swear Brian Kowitz was the best salesman I ever." He goes, "One time I tried to quit and go somewhere else," and he goes, "He sold me into staying." It was the most unbelievable thing.
It's interesting you say that, Matt, because it's because I when I believe in something strongly, it's easy to sell, and I don't even feel like I'm selling anything, because it's if it makes sense, it's easy to sell if it's good for somebody. And I truly believe that Mickey was such a great loan officer, and he was going to do so well with us. And I truly believe that we were the best platform for him. So it was easy, so that's why it came off that way.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, you listen to Mickey sell, getting kids to come play for him on Maccabi, or even, I've been on the phone with him when he's been selling, he sells life insurance, and it really is, selling is an art. It's an art. It's there's a lot of overlap between, like you said, baseball and business and selling, and you have to believe in it, but also you have to, people think selling, you have to become a whole new version of yourself. You're almost a different version for me, be a different version of Matt Luderman. But ultimately what it comes down to is just learning to, really understand who you are as a person, and selling not just the product, but yourself to someone.
Yeah.
Because if they believe in you and they enjoy being around you and they love interacting with you, then they're also buying into, it's easy to buy insurance from someone like Brian, because if something, God forbid, happens to my insurance, then I know I can call him up at any time, any day, and he cares about me and will take care of it for me. And again, I think that's where a lot of people get selling wrong in their life, is they try to sell another version of themselves, and people don't like inauthenticity.
People can smell it when you're not genuine. If you're not genuine, forget about it. If you're selling something you don't believe in, or you're offering something you don't believe in, then, people are going to sniff that out. I mean, Mickey was incredible, by the way, as a loan officer and a salesman. Mickey was so good and so true and genuine and worked so hard. He was the best. He was probably the best I've ever seen. But, that's for another day. But for me, our business, thrives on and we lean on our 4 core values, which is creative, compassionate, coachable, and responsiveness. And being responsive is really, really important. Creative, coachable, and compassionate. And those are how we run our company and how we want to be viewed by the public and by our clients. And we want to make sure that all 4 of those are very important. And you got to just be genuine in the process of what you're offering, and you got to believe in it yourself. So it's I do a lot of life insurance, Matt. So when I'm offering life insurance and I'm offering a plan, I mean, the plan I'm offering most of the time. So I own the life insurance and through the carrier that I'm offering to other people. So for me, it's really easy because, I have it, I've purchased it. I own it. I have it, and it works for me and my family. So it's really, for me, very, very easy. And, I you got to have a good team. You got to believe in what you do. And you got to be like, do have to be genuine.
Yeah. It's funny. And I know I keep making parallels between baseball and business, but again, I use so many lessons I've learned in baseball. But your core values is creative, compassionate, coachable. And what was the 4th one?
Responsive.
I mean, you kind of named the perfect baseball player, someone who's creative, right? Finding ways to get on base, finding ways to, if you're a pitcher, finding ways to find outs, and compassionate. You have to be a good teammate, right? People have to enjoy playing next to you. Coachable. I mean, no one wants to coach someone who's an a-hole. And so you've basically taken what you've learned from sport, and that's all sports, and applied it to your life. And I think even if you don't play sports, there's core tenets, as you say, just in life that in order to be successful, you kind of have to conquer some of those. And compassion is obviously a big one. People have to enjoy being around you, being creative. I always tell people, as I get older, I find that there's no one way to do things. There's many ways to do things, and you have to find what works for you. I mean, there's a result that you need to get to, but find what works for you and do it the right way. So I think it's really people that, whether they play sports or not, but you try to learn these core tenets that you're explaining, that you use in your business every day.
Business success is very much like baseball because, everybody has ideas. Everybody talks about these great ideas, and the ideas are the easy part. The ideas are easy. You hear so many people go, God, if they were smart, they'd be doing this, this, and this, and they should do this and they should do that. But what's behind the idea is, oh man, you actually got to roll your sleeves up and implement the idea and
Right.
chip away and work at the idea. And it like baseball, it's a very much a blue collar kind of lunch box type of mentality where you got to come into work every day and put your work in and grind away, and then over a series of time, a full season, you see the fruits of your labor, but you don't see it like in the first quarter of the season. It's like, oh man, I'm hitting 220 or I'm hitting whatever, big deal. I got
you're over 21, right? In AAA, you're over 21, right?
Deal. But then the body of work you look at, it's like building a company, or it's like being successful in sales. It's like every day you gotta show up and put the work in, because the success comes from the collective efforts of day by day by day, and the grind and the grit, which if you've played baseball at any level through college, I mean that grind and grit has to be there for you to be successful, and there's no guarantees either, and you have to be willing to put the work in, knowing that, hey, maybe I'm going to be successful, maybe I'm not. And that's how it is with business. You got to take the chance of putting yourself out there in order to achieve that success later and get and feel the fruits of those of the labor that you've put in.
Yeah, I think the best way to sum that up is just, and it's something that I've really tried to work hard on, is that discipline trumps motivation. motivation's a fleeting aspect of your life where, sometimes I always say you watch Rocky 4 and you come out of that movie theater pumped up and motivated, you start changing your habits, but that'll go away because when you wake up at 6 a.m. to get up and go to a meeting, you're not going to be very motivated.
That's right.
But if you're disciplined about it and you know that this is the right thing to do and you know that's, you have to get better in all of your facets of business, or if you're in the baseball field, you still have to get up and work out at 6 a.m. and go to class and then train even more. Eventually, as you said, the fruits of your labor will pay off. May not show tomorrow, but over the course of a series or a season, you'll start seeing that pay off and you'll start separating yourselves from everyone else who said, you know what, this just isn't for me. And I've lost that motivation and I don't feel like conquering that discipline.
Yeah, good. If it's all good habits and good decisions, you have to have good habits and you have to make good decisions, and you have to continually work on improving yourself and getting better, and then just 1% better, incrementally better. And I've been showing up to work, gosh, since 1996. I've literally gotten up and gone to work every day for the last basically 29 years, every day, and just put in a good, honest day's work. Yeah. It's the consistency that I've been able to achieve that has gotten me to a point where, I've been able to get my kids through private school and send my kids to college and, live in my house and do what I got to do for my kids and my family. I mean, it's the discipline of showing up every day, Matt. I didn't do anything special. I didn't do some crazy deal or get lucky or, win something or inherit. I didn't inherit anything. It's all coming from just chipping away, showing up every day and working every day, and being disciplined. I mean, that's really what it is. It's staying the course.
Yeah. So I think that is, for our conversations, a really good way to sort of close out this podcast, because that, again, guests like you make it really easy just to sit and talk forever. But I do want to end. I've sort of created this little game, not really a game, but it's sort of just a series of 5 questions that I find interesting that I tailored towards the guest. So the first question is, who's the toughest pitcher you have ever faced in your life?
Well, I'm going to give you a pitcher that most people won't know about, and then I'll give you one that somebody knows about. So the first pitcher that nobody knows about, but was probably my toughest pitcher I ever faced, was a guy named Joey Eishen. He played for the Expos and the Dodgers. He's a left-handed pitcher that threw, a gazillion miles an hour, and didn't always have the best control. And I always seemed to face him when it was really cold out. So it was really uncomfortable because I'm left-handed, he's left-handed, and he's kind of coming from out here. And as you know, you're a left-handed hitter, so
it's coming from behind you.
Yeah, it's kind of coming from behind you a little bit at about 98 miles an hour. It's really scary. So that he was really tough. Another pitcher that was tough. There was the guy for the Cubs named Steve Traxel that just had an incredible changeup that I just could not pick up that changeup. His arm speed was so good, and it came out of his hand really well. That he was tough. But then Pedro was very tough to hit. Pedro Martinez.
Wow.
And Andy Pettit, he was pretty good. I didn't have I felt pretty comfortable hitting against him, more so than I did Joey Eishen. But yeah, I never faced Randy Johnson. He would have been the toughest, by the way, if I had to face him, or like Aroldis Chapman or somebody like that. That would have been, those two would have been a nightmare. But yeah, those are the pitchers that were probably the more difficult ones.
Okay, 2 out of 5. Second question: who's the nicest ballpark you ever played in?
I think Coors Field was an incredible place.
Is it the same Coors Field as today?
Coors Field, yeah. It was like one of the newer stadiums, and I mean, it was just pristine, beautiful, just a beautiful setting. Just see mountains, and just it was beautiful there.
Yeah. Batting practice must have been fun because the balls fly there.
Balls flying. It was great. I felt like I had power there.
So I don't know if you guys did or not, but nowadays they do walk-up songs. If you had to go back right now, let's say Brian Kowitz in 2025 is playing baseball, what would your walk-up song be today?
Yeah, that's a great question. Probably Aerosmith's "Dream On."
Oh, it's a good one. That's a really good one.
Yeah,
that
would be my walk-up song.
All right, so you played for the Braves, Orioles Braves World Series. Who are you rooting for?
I know I'm going to root for the Braves.
Good.
And I grew up as an Orioles fan, but I'm going to root for the team that drafted me. The Orioles could have drafted me, and they didn't. So I'm gonna root for the Braves in that one.
All right, last question. What's a better feeling, hitting a home run, walk-off home run, or closing a really big deal that you've been working on for months?
It's not even close. Not even close. The walk-off home run. Not even close. I would rather live in an alley. I'd live in an alley to hit another walk-off home run.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
That's not even close.
Awesome. Well, Brian, this was a blast. Let's get you back on here soon, man. This was a lot of fun. It's always a pleasure talking to you. So
yes.
Yep. And if you guys need a good insurance agent, Heller Kowitz, they are the best. Give them a shout. And
thank you.
We'll see you next time.
Appreciate it. Congrats on episode number 30.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
You got it, my man. Thank you.